Alright guys, welcome back to another Mod Bros video. First thing I would like to say is I want to apologize for taking so long to get part 4 out of the series for the homemade internals Retaliator. We were starting doing it and then I went into finals and we also had to move houses, and so it got put on the back burner. But I've recently finished it, and so I want to show you guys all that I've done to make it work and how you guys can do it as well. It's currently running full set of homemade internals and has a 25 Newton spring in it, which primes and catches very easily and works great. It has the threaded coupler at the front, so I can take any of my threaded barrels that will work on my other recon, and it's great. Once I've threaded it in, we get a fully sealed brass breech that will feed full-length darts. So it's a little tight right now because it's just fresh build and the O-rings are still kind of working in, but as you guys can see there, the full-length FVJ is sitting in the brass, and as I close the breech, the brass is so tight. There we go. All right. As you guys can see, I started off with 4 darts. Now there's only 3 in the mag, so it did chamber that dart successfully. And I'm gonna fire it off through our chrono barrel, just to show you off what kind of performance it's getting. This is with about 7 inches of 73 seconds and the 25 Newton spring. So 174, that is with a non-wax barrel, and as I said, the O-rings are still very tight and it doesn't want to really fire that great right now, but once I work it in a little bit, I feel like it'll be really nice to go. But it's really great. When I fired this thing against a cardboard box, I was able to fully penetrate through one side of the cardboard, and so that's great. And as you guys can hear, it fires very nicely. So yeah, I'm just going to take it apart now and show you guys what we're looking at. So one thing that I really like about this is if I take off the 2 screws at the very back, I'm able to change out my spring combination. That couplered in with my changeable barrel setup allows me to get a very wide variety of performance. So if I want to hit for wars that have a 200 FPS limit, I can easily do that with the extended barrel and the 25 Newton spring. If I want to go even further, I can put in a full length 62 Hillman, and that'll work. And then I also, if I want to perform in like low power wars, I can put a very short barrel of 1730 seconds and a very small spring. So here's a 25 Newton spring. It's what I really like in my homemades, and it works really nicely. I kind of like it a little bit more than the 62 Hillman because the 62 Hillman is a very stiff spring to prime. That one is relatively easy to prime, and I still get very nice performance. So with the homemade internals on these blasters, the most likely thing to break out of all this is actually this slide right here, because you see the way the Retaliator works is you have these 2 pins on each side of the slide, and those are actually what clips in to your bolt sled or bolt carrier as I'm sort of running, and that's actually the most likely thing to break. So normally on recons I'll reinforce that with a screw. In this case these ones are solid, whereas on the recon they're hollow. I can't really put a screw in these to reinforce them, so I'm just gonna wait till these break and then cut them off and put an entire new bolt through the front, and that's how I'll reinforce that once that happens. But for right now it's still working, so I'm just gonna use it until it dies. If you guys look, I'm running a metal trigger from Orange Mod Works. It's just one of the triggers that I had left over. You can use a standard trigger. I did have to extend the ramp. You might not need to do that, but the way I made my catch, since it's running a homemade catch, I wanted to get a little bit of a snappier trigger. So this trigger normally on a recon, which I don't have nearby to show you, but normally on a recon there's a little bit of a slack before you actually hit the catch, whereas with this one there's no slack whatsoever. There's like a hair, but it's a very responsive trigger that I will show you guys once I get this last screw out. Alright guys, so yeah, that's the first thing I want to show you is the trigger right here. As you can see, it's just a standard Orange Mod Works metal trigger with just a couple layers of polycarb on it, and then I sanded it very smooth and very flat, and I put a little grease on it to have it be what actuates the catch. So the modifications that have been done since the last video is I've added a 1/2 inch PVC coupler into the back here, and you'll see there are 2 holes There's a hole on this side and there's a hole on the other side, and those correlate with my spring guide here, which is 1/2-inch PVC thin walled. This is what I have in the stock attachment piece that the 25 Newton spring goes on through, and then I have this clicks into there. These two holes line up, and then I can put in screws perpendicular to the shells, which keeps the stock attachment point from coming off. And yeah, I just have a quarter as a spring stop to prevent the spring from coming through there. Could maybe get a washer, but I had a quarter nearby, so I just felt like doing that. And now this is the main thing that I had to do since the last video, because I couldn't get the stock Retaliator catch to work because the catch surface is flat, and so it wasn't giving me enough surface area to catch onto my curved plunger rod catch. So basically I made this, as you guys can see, it's very similar. It has a very similar outside shape to the Retaliator catch, including the spring notch and then down here where it interfaces with the trigger, but the actual catching surface on the inside is very similar to that of a long shot, which is curved, and it has a lot more surface area to connect to the plunger rod and catch, and it's very strong. And because of that, I'm actually able to run a very light catch spring. This is it's not a stock catch spring, but it's still incredibly light, which gives me a very nice trigger pull. And yeah, this is, I made this out of 3 layers of a very thin polycarbonate that I have. I can make it out of 1 if I had a thicker polycarbonate, but I didn't have any. So and now, as you guys can see, I was having issues where the plunger tube was freely moving forward and backwards, and so what I've done is I created basically a mold for it out of hot glue, since I put grease on the plunger tube so the hot glue wouldn't stick to the plunger tube, but the hot glue would form around it. So basically this keeps it from going up or down, and this little tab up here at the front keeps it from moving forwards or backwards, which is really great. And additionally, one thing that I had to do since part 3 was I've sanded right in this area here, and that is to allow me to insert a magazine when the breech is closed, like so. Because normally, because of how tight the PVC was on the mag, I wouldn't be able to remove it, but now that it's sanded, it pops out cleanly. And there you guys can see my 9/16. I had to sand this down a fair amount. I just kept sanding it and sanding it until I was able to feed full lengths. But yeah, perfect, right? So I'm gonna put this thing back together and then give you one more firing demo. That'll be it for the video. All right, so you guys can see down in there that clear piece of acrylic is the catch, and it goes up and down perfectly. It comes down a little bit further than the stock catch, and because it's rounded, it allows for the spring to go in smoothly around it. All right, guys, now that I got it all back together, I'm gonna fire off 4 darts through the chronograph for you, and just that's how I'm gonna end the video for you guys. Oh, I hate this mag. My mag not feeding, Tucker.
Your mag not feeding?
I know it's my mag. That's why I'm upset. $120.
Ooh.
Yikes, that's a little soft.
Get out of here, bug.
I'll make you have to do lots of cuts. $169. 169.8 for the final one. So I'd say averaging around 160, 155, I guess. Not exactly where I would like it, but I may make a new barrel for it since I want to try a longer barrel. Actually, give me that barrel.
This one?
That one. Yeah. All right, so this is with a full foot of 17/32 and an 8-string scar at the end, running 25 Newton spring. This is the barrel that I would probably run if I ran the 62 Hillman. But God, I hate this chronograph. Well, it says 70, but I managed to break that FPJ shooting a foam pad, so I don't know how much I believe that 70 FPS.
It has performance anxiety, guys.
Yeah, I don't believe this. I don't believe this chronograph much. But that's what you get when you buy Hasbro chronographs.
Mine earlier. Mine-ish.
I don't believe it. It's a lie.
147 for my Cronus.
I don't. Not at all. Alright guys, that's going to be it for this part 4 of the homemade internals Retaliator mod guide. Hope you guys liked it, and I'll make sure to check you guys out in the next video that I make. So, see ya.